All right. Everybody's ready? Ready, set, go?
I am ready.
Good.
Got a call last night from an old friend's wife.
All right. Welcome to the Sounds Like Life podcast with the one and only Darryl Worley.
Woo!
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. Save it for later.
As you can tell, we are not in our studio, but we're in a pretty famous studio here on Music Row.
We have our own podcast studio, by the way.
Do you
I don't
really?
know if I mentioned
Man,
that.
I knew you
Oh,
win.
look at him.
I knew you back when.
Y'all have missed it. We should have had the cameras rolling for the last half hour as these two guys have been keeping us entertained while everything's been getting set up. But I think you're in for a treat today. We don't really know where we're going with this episode, but judging by the laughs that we've already shared, I think we're going to have some fun. So
I know,
Yes,
cameras on,
sir.
we get nervous now.
cameras
Shut up.
on, you get nervous, and everybody shuts up. Well, that's not possible. It's not possible to keep this guy over here from having some fun and chatting it up. You've been busy, buddy. You've been on the road pretty solid for about a month.
I called Julianne on the way up here today, and I don't know what happened, unless I was just way over exhausted. But yesterday, let's see, did I get home yesterday or day before? Maybe night before, late. I didn't even. I just wandered around aimlessly all day long. I didn't know where I was. I told Kimberly I called her from downtown. I said, I came down here to do several things. I said, I don't have any idea what any of that is. I said, I'm just standing out here on the street right now in Savannah looking around. And I said, I think I'm going to go home and go to bed. I was wiped out.
Yeah.
I'm not used to runs like that. We wound up out in California, and then we flew all the way from L.A. to Albany, New York in one day. And I'm telling you, I don't care if I ever go back to LAX again.
Really?
That place,
Pretty wild.
we saw something there we've never seen before. We saw a security breach.
Really?
Yeah, we're trying to get through the TSA pre-check line, and you hear this. We heard this big, it's like a tussle, and we heard some people screaming, and the guy turns around and goes, "Everybody back up!" And I was like,
Yes, sir.
and I was the guy next in line. I was the next guy, and they shut it down. And here we are looking at our watch. It's like, well, I ain't got a watch, but it's like, okay, we got 45 minutes. If they don't open this back up, we're in trouble. We're not going to get on our flight. But we got on.
Did they ever say what happened? Just
Somebody tried to just run through or something.
how stupid.
I never knew, but I've never experienced that before. No.
Isn't it crazy though? When we were kids, you could walk down to the gate. You didn't have to go through any security.
You could go
Yeah.
down there with your folks and visit somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you
it was
could.
just a different time.
That's exactly
you know,
right.
Mm.
I'd kind of forgot about that. Boy, it is different. Ooh.
Since 9/11, I guess. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we used to. And of course, you get on the plane, then everybody was smoking.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In a
Well,
big tube.
Not too long ago, I was on one that still had the ashtrays.
Wow.
Yeah,
no kidding.
sure did.
I like the
thought
fact they used to have smoking and non-smoking sections on a plane.
Yeah. Was it vintage?
I mean,
Oh,
what
it's
you gonna
before
do,
my
though?
time.
Tell Dean Martin or somebody he can't have a cigarette.
Well,
Yeah.
Sorry, sir, you're not gonna be able to smoke.
be able to smoke.
I'll shut this thing down.
So Darryl, introduce your friends here for all of our listeners, watchers.
TW's a dear friend of mine. We just call him Big.
Yeah.
Always have. He had a studio called Big, and that's where we went in and recorded the Sounds Like Life record.
Had fun doing
Moose
that, man.
produced it and we did it with all of my band. And that's when I got to know him, which is many years ago. Obviously, people say, "Yeah, we know," but
Yeah, shit, we met at
16 years ago.
at least, yes.
I think it was 2008.
That's
something like
probably
that.
right.
Wow.
Or it
that's
came
right.
out. It came out in 2008, so it might have been 2007 when we started.
It
I don't
could
know.
have been.
well, I started big in 07. So yeah, it was probably 2008.
I think that's right.
That's
But I
good.
mean, with these two, that's when I learned, that it was a little bit different to make a good record with your band, with your road band.
Oh, I don't know.
And
man.
we had
I think I liked it because it didn't sound like everything else. I liked it.
I thought it was really, really good because we took a lot of pains with it, and we had a great place to work.
Yeah.
I came in and out of there. It was just like being at home, you know. It was real comfortable. It's a condo now, ain't it?
Yep. It's a whole lot of condos now.
And then this is Jim Moose Brown.
Thank you, ladies.
Obviously, we just called him Moose. We was talking about Randy, our buddy, a while ago, gave him that nickname.
That's where I had the question ready.
Probably should just go ahead and tell that story now.
Well, let's see. So the very first time I met Randy, I was on a bus. I'd been asked to do a gig with, I can't think of her name. She was an it doesn't matter. But I'm on the bus, and he comes up and bouncing around like he did. And I said, "How you doing?" I'm Moose. No, I said, "How you doing?" And he stepped back and he looked. I'm gonna call you Moose.
That was it.
And that was it.
Yeah. So I've been Moose ever since. I thought, who is this idiot? But we ended up being best friends.
He
awesome?
He nicknamed me Legs with a Head when we first met, and he kept saying that that don't flow right, and then it wound up being Spider.
Spider legs, yeah, Spider.
Yeah. But so Jim and I just best friends, close friends. But we've written tons of songs together. We have he's produced a bunch of my hit songs and albums. We just since we met, which was in those early days, like we were
met
talking
before
about.
that actually, because you were riding down Muscle Shoals at Fame, and I used to come down and play on demos. Before we started,
I met you there. That was the very first time.
You and Walt and Brad Chrysler and John Paul White.
That's the first time I ever met you.
Yeah, I
You're
used
right.
to come down and play on
I had
demos.
forgotten about that.
That might have been
Oh.
late 90s, maybe.
Oh no, that was early 90s.
Early 90s?
Yeah.
Wow. Woo.
That was early 90s.
Mhm.
That was like 93, 94.
Because we met late 90s at the Q.
Oh,
Doing
that's
demos. Yeah.
that's right. Good gracious. Oh man,
We're freaking old.
We
I had
are.
no idea.
But anyway, these guys, Moose, Win Varble, Randy Hardison. There's a big list of all of us that, hung out, played together, recorded demo sessions together, wrote songs together. Man, anytime I get a chance to put this out there, I personally don't believe that I would ever hit a lick in this town without guys like this guy here. I mean, I'm just being sincere.
I'd say you're right.
I see. I do. But I mean, you come here and you put on your best. I can do anything face, and you try to come with the right attitude. But the truth is, somewhere down deep inside, you're scared to death. Because you're thinking, is this going to work or not? And when
it was the same for us.
Well,
players,
no, I believe you. I believe you.
We were
But when
just
I
trying
got
to
to
get it figured
EMI
out.
and I got that deal, I thought they're not going to keep me around here long if I ain't producing. And man, we just always all kind of pulled together, and did stuff together, especially co-writing and those demos. Oh man, I'm telling you, I can still go back and pull out some of those demos, and they're just really special to me. I mean,
well, and it's neat for me to see as I'm getting more and more exposed to your circle and the people that that really prop up Darryl Worley to make,
absolutely.
And it's cool how I see you do that in their life too. And just the way, because I can't imagine, and you've told me some of these stories, and we won't go into some of these with the other artists who don't have that.
Right.
They don't have that circle, and they're not with their best friends making music.
That's right.
And traveling with
it's
their
a
friends.
support
And
group, man.
I can't imagine.
I can't either.
Because
there's
people see the glamorous part of what you do. They see that you're on Music Row making music today, and that's cool. But the hours and hours and years of work that it takes to get in this building and to make this music, and the heartbreak and the anxiety and all of those things.
I couldn't imagine being 12 hours in a studio with somebody you don't like.
I know. I mean,
I've done that a few times. I'm not saying I didn't like them, but I was pretty sure they didn't like me.
Well, give us some names.
I knew that was coming.
You just wait till the end of this. You'll know a lot more about him.
Yeah. He's starting to loosen up over. I see him stretching. Speaking of famous building, tell us a little bit about this building and this history.
Yeah, man. It's the old RCA building, built in, early 60s, like 60 or 62. Chet Atkins and those cats at RCA built it.
Yeah.
And this room we're in was one of, I think, Chet's last offices
Really?
that he had.
How cool was that?
Yeah, we've been in here since 2010. That's when we started leasing this space.
Yeah.
And man, we love it. It's the whole building's like a little community, man. There's
Really?
a bunch of musicians here and a couple studios around here. It's just a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
This studio downstairs, the big tracking room, is very large, and so it was really the only studio that it could accommodate. Chet liked to do records with orchestra and strings and stuff, so they'd all track being there at the same time. And that doesn't really go on much anymore because there's not big rooms like this anymore.
I mean, Elvis cut down there. A
Yeah.
lot of Dolly's hits were cut there.
Yeah, Willie, Waylon.
Well,
yeah.
there's pictures now all over the building.
It's really.
of people
I've been
that
trying
cut
to
it,
catch all of.
You can feel it when you come in here.
It's neat.
Historic, yeah.
Is there? So
Yeah.
I didn't do as much research as I normally do, but to me, this is probably the most historic studio
Yeah,
in Nashville.
One
I mean,
of them,
it's going to
for
be in the
sure.
top
Yeah.
5 for sure.
Studio B next door is probably the most famous.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why they called it B, because this was built afterwards. So that was first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's neat.
Yeah.
It's
they,
pretty cool.
they still hold tours over
It's
there.
dyslexic studio talk.
There you go.
Dyslexic studio talk. Now you were cutting some background vocals earlier. Tell us about that. That's a song that you, when you were singing when we got in here.
Oh no, we were just doing a couple of little verses and a lead part on a thing that me and Chris Wallen wrote. People Where I'm From is the title of the song, and he's got a little female artist he's working with. She's doing good, and they called me up and said, I've always loved that song, but Chris has gotten his record label. They're all about this political stuff, and they're kind of in those circles battling it out and all that. So he's changed a few lines in that song to make it. He's doing everything he can to get that song to Trump and them so that they can use it for the campaign. And I told him, I said, I don't know if it's worth messing with or not, because I think it's a great song. But I really didn't mind the changes. So we were just getting a keeper vocal that he could use he's going to put me on there with that girl he's working with.
Yeah.
And I was fine with it. I mean,
Sounded great.
thank you.
Sounded really good. Yep.
It's a good little song.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool song.
I love the idea of People Where I'm From.
Yeah.
Because that's anywhere.
It really is.
That's anywhere all over the country. Because whoever's saying that is talking about his homies.
Yeah.
And I told him when he threw that out, I said, I love that idea. I said we can write something really cool with that. And so we'll see. It's just it's roll of the dice these days. You just throw it out there and see what happens.
Yep.
I like it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good one to hear. All right, so which one of you want to go first and tell me your favorite Darryl Worley story? Because there's going to be some good ones here.
Is there a rating to this podcast?
Is there what?
A rating?
You go for it. We'll edit it if we need to.
Well, I don't know if I have an exact story, but we used to have some pretty good poker games. That's going back a ways, but you and Win Varble and Bryce
I'll
Long
just skip those.
shared was it a duplex or something, or a condo?
Yeah,
or?
it was I think a townhouse they called it,
Townhouse,
but it had
yeah.
two of them, so it's a duplex.
We had some legendary poker games. There were many times
Yes, we did.
we'd have a bunch of IOUs out there on the
Oh, yeah.
table. And
Randy brought his money and his change in a sock. Remember? He put it in a sock.
yes, I do.
And he'd get mad. He'd run his hand down in that sock.
Oh,
Now tell me about Randy. You said Randy a couple times. Tell me who that is.
Randy Hardison is a guy that he was a drummer here in town and a songwriter, and he was one of our little circle crew, I guess you'd call it, just circle of friends, and we all worked in this business together. We wrote together, we recorded together. He and Moose were both studio players, but also they do live stuff as well, and songwriters. So they had a lot going on in town, and I probably have mentioned this to you before. We were all very, very close, knit little group of idiots, and had so much fun together. But Randy was Randy lost his life. He was murdered here in Nashville 22 years ago, I think you said.
June of 2002. Yep.
June of 2002, we lost him. And that's just been one of those things that has kind of, it's just one of those shadows, that kind of never goes away.
Yeah.
We were talking before cameos got rolling. He's pretty much the common thread between all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of brought an entire little couple families together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's the one who found Jamie Johnson. We were talking about that. I think that was off camera. And he said, God, you got to hear this guy, Jamie Johnson. So he went to Buddy Cannon, and him and Buddy were going to produce Jamie's first record, and then Randy got killed before that could happen. So Buddy produced the first one.
Yep.
And so, yeah, he's a common thread with all of us, and I love him and miss him.
Moose reminded me that I met him before when I was writing for Rick Hall in Muscle Shoals at Fame. He had come down to play on some sessions, and that's how we met the first time. But he already knew Randy, and Randy and I got to know each other through, him and Wynn and several other people that were part of our little group. And Randy was a really, really special person. I mean, he was probably the funniest human being and quick-witted that I've ever met. I mean, it would it would floor you how quickly he could come back with something, and it would just be like you'd think you'd have to sit and think for hours to come up with that. But just brilliant. I mean, quick. Incredible songwriter. Everything he did good, and it was really, really super funny. It's been a sore spot, losing him the way we did. And what was that show that we were all on that came to Nashville, and was it 48 hours or
48
minutes?
Hours. 48 hours.
Was it 48 hours?
Really?
Yeah, they did a
I'll check
special
that out.
episode on his death.
Oh yeah, they did a whole.
It was just a strange the way it all happened.
It really was. We went and saw some of the court proceedings and that kind of stuff, and it was just sickening. Really, the whole thing was But anyway.
Now, is Randy tiny?
Yeah, tiny.
Moose.
Yep.
Big. I'm getting a list going here because I see the real name when they send me who's coming, and then it's
Did Tiny have a nickname for Wynn?
Was it Big Red? I think he called him Big Red.
Big Red.
Yeah.
And then
you know where that all started.
Wynn started losing his hair.
You know where all these nicknames started, right?
Oh.
So I wasn't even a part of this, but there was a guitar player named Red Volkart, and him and Swine and Randy and Tiny played with an artist. I can't remember who it was, but the name of the band was the Swingin' Johnsons. And he said, "I'm gonna call you Moose. You're Moose Johnson. You're an honorary Swingin' Johnson." So it was all like it was Swine Johnson, Tiny Johnson, Big Red Johnson.
That's funny.
I didn't know that.
That's the truth. I remember the Johnson.
Yeah, Moose Johnson.
Well, that's neat. It's neat to kind of hear y'all's stories, and again, I feel like I know the guy from the stories you guys have told, and just
now to
hear
idea.
someone else to just to see the passion when you talk about him. That's cool.
Oh man,
I mean, that's cool.
I
So
wish
I
I could think of
forgot
a
that
story.
Swine we need to trash him really good today, and then I'll be sure and send him the link to the episode.
Yeah.
He was Swine was supposed to be here. Swine is Kevin Grant, another one of. Did Tiny give him the Swiney nickname?
No.
No, I think Mel
No.
Tillis did. Mel
Okay.
Tillis gave it, and for
That
good
makes-
reason, I hear.
That makes a lot of sense.
I don't think I can tell that story.
We might want to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but Tillis said, Kevin, you were nothing but a swine because of what he had just done.
Well,
But I can't tell you what that
if
was.
Mel Tillis said that, I can tell you right
You've earned
now.
it.
Then it sticks.
Yes, you earned it. But anyway, I called him or texted him to try to see where he was because he was supposed to be here in one of these seats today, and I won't tell you what he said happened, but anyway, he couldn't make it, and so it just leaves us wide open to just trash him.
Okay.
So-
So tell us your
and-
favorite Swan story then,
mighty
since he's
Swan.
not here.
Well,
I can't tell you my favorite one.
Oh.
No.
man, there's a bunch of them. But anyway, I was gonna say he played bass, and phenomenal bass player. He played bass on most of my records.
Yeah.
And
Him and I co-produced Sounds Like Life
that's right.
together. Yeah.
That's right. Him and Kevin co-produced that record.
Yeah.
And talk about a unique individual.
Yeah.
He is that guy. He is an unbelievable player, an incredible friend. You know, somebody that you can count on. Not necessarily to show.
Not
up for,
today, but
for
I
the
hear what you're
podcast,
saying.
but yeah.
Yeah.
So and there's a bunch more. You know, like Bryce Long kind of came into the same circle. He was a little further down the road, but he came along, and so there's just a bunch of people that it's kind of in the bigger circle, if you will, that we all love and appreciate, and we've all worked together for a lot of years. And like I said to start off with this, I might not even be here doing this today if it wasn't for these guys. So it's just pretty cool to be here and be hanging out in some of these old familiar places and seeing people that you hadn't seen in a while. It's
I
neat.
thought of a tiny story I could probably tell, but you probably know this one. But we were in the studio. You weren't there, but it was a bunch of us session guys, and we were doing a session for this publishing company called Seagale, and the song plugger was Liz O'Sullivan. You remember her?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And she came in and she was hanging out with all the guys, session players, you know. And she was just making conversation. She had just broken up with Sean Camp,
Right.
famous songwriter here in town, and she said, "Hey, has anybody seen Sean lately? He's gained a little weight." And about that time, Randy's cell phone. She said, "Oh, please don't say anything." About that time, Randy's cell phone rang. And he said, "Hello, Sean Camp is fat." Stop it. So we go in there to do the first song, and Randy's, being the drummer, is counting it off. He says, 1, 2, Sean is fat. And Liz just left. She just had to leave. She couldn't take it. Oh,
Has
my
anybody
God.
seen Sean lately? He's gained some weight.
That's funny.
Who would even say that? But she should have known.
Oh,
better.
she should have known. Yeah.
She should have really known better, man. Boy, you just reminded me of a story. Yeah, I really don't think I could tell it either. But it was a session story. You were there, you know when.
Gosh, no telling. There's so many.
Well, you'll have to edit this out. But when Tiny got the nut knots,
Oh, yes.
that's what he
I
called
remember that
it.
story.
Yeah. He
I'll
caught-
never forget.
he
He
caught
said,
what he called
"Don't you
me."
say a word." And him and Swine was outside the door talking. It's my session. He says, Tiny comes in, Swine didn't come in. I thought, that's odd. He puts the cassette in, starts playing the first song. And they let it play, and it plays down to the end. As soon as it goes off, Swine comes running in the door and goes, "Y'all heard? Tiny's got the nut knots." And he goes, he went outside. He got so frustrated, but it was like he
Oh,
he
he
knew
he
he was
did.
gonna go in
He
there and
had
tell
called me that morning before the session, and he was telling me about it. I said, "Man, I think you ought to go to the doctor." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, one of them's about the size of a baseball." Or no, he said one of them's the size of a peanut, and the other one's a little bitty old thing. Oh,
That's
he was an
funny.
idiot. Anyway, that'll get
Oh,
edited out.
God.
But
We're in the studio. Tell us. We're telling some pretty good stories. Let's keep that trend going. Because if these walls could talk, you were talking about the names earlier. I mean, there's got to be some just incredible memories that you guys have in the studio. Any of those stories you want to share? Want to bring to life? Want to?
I remember in the studio, but we went to lunch one day. It was in this little Toyota car. And he's, what, 6'4", 6'6"?
6'6".
Yeah, I'm 6'8". And then it was you and Swine in the little Toyota.
Swine.
Yeah.
We went to the Pie Wagon.
Yes, we did.
There was an old black lady taking a break there. And he gets out of the car. She goes, "How'd you fit in there?" Then I get out of the car, and she just started crying.
I told her, I said, "You ain't seen nothing
She
yet."
ain't nothing yet.
And they started
when she saw him get
And
out,
she
she went,
started crying.
it looked like a clown car unloading.
Oh my God, I'd forgot about that. I
I'll never
totally
forget that
remember that now.
Just her laugh was awesome.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Gotta love a good laugh.
I'll tell you a fun time that I remember. It just popped into my head when we were cutting. I don't remember. Maybe it was that same record, but we had one track that we had Mel Tillis,
Dude,
Bill
it was
Anderson.
Don't Show Up if you can't get
Don't
down.
show
I was
up if
getting
you
ready
can't
to
get down.
tell the
Yeah.
same thing.
It was that-
Bill
I'm just-
Anderson, John Anderson. They were calling themselves the Anderson
John
Twins.
Cowan.
Yeah, Ira Dean,
Ira
Jamie
Dean was on
Johnson,
it.
Steve Harwell from Smash Mouth.
That's
Wow.
right. He's on there. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
forgot it was all those cats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, did he pass?
he
Yeah,
did
That's
pass
what I
away,
thought. Super nice guy.
Yeah. I think that Chris Stapleton, he did. Chris Stapleton and Sean Murphy from Bob Seger's band, I got them in to sing on that
That's
as well.
right.
Because I remember Sean, she can
Oh,
wail.
wow.
And Chris stopped and he said, "I'm sorry, who are you?" He was like so blown
Yeah.
away with her
Yeah.
vocals. But yeah, we had some folks on that. It was a lot of fun.
Well, if you remember, I don't even know how to tell this, but so it was the only track on the record that we got lubed up for.
Oh yeah.
And we just said it, if you want to be a part of this, you gotta
Mm-hmm.
get loosened up and warmed up good. And that
yeah.
means we couldn't leave immediately after tracking and drive home.
And I made them do that because
It was so good.
Well, there was-
because the track was feeling too tight, and I said, "Guys, you got to loosen up." And
They were just thinking about it too much. Man.
Yeah.
one of the guys in the band had something they were smoking, and I said, "Everybody has to take just one little hit of that." And the track just went and loosened
He
up.
didn't
and
have
loosened
any
up.
idea what that stuff did to me at the time. Which I thought it was hilarious.
And I don't even smoke. But I made everybody playing.
Let me tell you what was funny, and you'll remember this when I tell it. So I was playing this it was just something that probably genetically made sense to me for mine and Swine's. It was Swine and I wrote that song. And Phillbilly would sit in front of me because he certainly didn't do that, but he would sit in front of me and I would play this little goofy rhythm pattern and then he'd say, okay, I got it. He'd go up out there and get in the booth, and then as soon as we started playing, he couldn't do it. And I said, "Am I going to have to?" And I think I played a track all the way down with an acoustic guitar. And I mean, I wouldn't have. Well, it's probably a good thing we did that because I would have never done that. I'd been like, I'm not.
But you
going
know
anymore.
what? That's why that track feels so good, because everybody's right on the verge of falling apart. They're
Yes.
like, "I don't know if I can pull it off with the tools I got."
Crum was bass player on that
Yeah.
song, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him turning around and flipping me off
Oh yeah,
because he knew where that bat came from.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was so
Did it work, man?
nervous.
Well, he was the
about-
biggest critic of himself of any human being I've ever known. Probably still the same
Still
way.
is.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call him
And I'm
Eeyore.
like, dude, and I thought, how is this ever going to work for him playing with Jamie when he left and went with Jamie? Because Jamie might just start a song that ain't none of them ever even knows what
That's
that's
right.
just him.
He is the best at just coming in, whatever Jamie's doing, because I was on the road with Jamie for like 11, 12 years. But Jamie will start his weird intros, and all of a sudden, here's the bass coming in a perfect time.
Well, of course he's good at it,
Yeah.
but he don't think that.
Exactly.
No, he
He'll
doesn't.
wear himself
And he has
out.
a great show, and after, on the bus, man, a great show. He's like, oh, it sucked.
Yeah. Oh, every time.
Every
Oh,
time.
I know.
Yeah.
Believe me, I've had him
Every
for
time.
years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that experience, actually the whole record. My guys, Tom, he just left. He's been with me almost 19 years, and
Wow.
and he still talks about it.
Yeah.
Just
We had some good times.
the experience of being able to get in there and do their thing and knowing that it was gonna, and Hayes was back for a little while. He went on and on about you being like a mentor and how he said he taught me how to play. He taught me how to play. And
He called me one day and we had a very good conversation. He just thanked me for.
that's awesome.
That was looking back at it, those guys, road bands back then especially, didn't play on records too much.
Right.
So we were kind of taking a chance, but I knew it would be great. But they were all nervous, and
Sure.
and he was nervous because I'm a piano player and I'm producing, and Swine was co-producing, and Mark, had listened to all these records flying and
Sure.
put it on, and so they were nervous. But so just smoke a little bit and it all. Do you remember how we found?
Smoke a little bit and it turns out like this. Check out the record. I don't know where he's at.
Sounds Like Life. How that came about?
How
it came about that we cut that song? I'll remind you. So I was playing on a Craig Morgan record.
Oh, that's right.
And I was in the control room, and we cut Sounds Like Life to me on Craig Morgan. And I saw the lyric sheet in the control room, and it had your name and Phillbilly and Win.
And Win, yeah.
Yeah, the three of you guys wrote that.
That's
so
right.
I called you, and I said, man, congratulations. We just cut a smash that you wrote on Craig Morgan. It's gonna be, I'm telling you, it's going to be a huge hit. Well, it ended up not making his record. The record label didn't.
It was a what do they call it? A hidden track or something.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. You could get the extra track and I was like.
But I don't think the label heard it for some reason, and I always remembered that. And it was probably 2 or 3 years later when you called me and said, Frank Rogers can't do this record with me. He's just too busy. And we were talking, and we thought you'd be good to produce this, and I said, well, we need to cut Sounds Like Life to me. And you were actually a little standoffish about it in the beginning.
Right, no, I remember. You're absolutely right.
And we sped it up a little bit. I think we made it a little bit bigger, more radio sounding, and man.
I'm just saying the mix.
That was the first, and TW mixed it.
The mix.
Yes.
That was the first hit I ever produced.
It was a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a really funny story behind that song and the label that I was on at the time. They said that song would never be a hit, and you know why? They said it would never be a hit. They said it doesn't resolve. They said it doesn't resolve. He's like he's mad in the second verse, and I said so. I'm in this meeting with 3 or 4 other people that supposedly know everything there is to know about the music industry, and I said, so what you're telling me is that people won't connect to it because it's real, but they would connect to it if it resolved, which is unreal.
Exactly.
Because everything doesn't resolve.
They never did.
And
they
I
finally
said,
threw it out there, but I don't think they believed in it. Because that wasn't the first single, and I kept saying, I'm telling you, this is a Darryl Worley song.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
They told me when I bucked up, and I said, we're putting this out. And they said, if you do, and it's a flop, you're gone from here. And of course, as you well know, I had been trying to figure out how to get out of there, and I thought, this is a win-win.
Yeah.
And then it was like a number 6 or 7 on the charts. A lot of things happened, though, in the life of that record that they didn't even know was going to happen. Kix Brooks called me out of the blue, and he said, man, he had that countdown thing, and he said, man, I'm going to help you. He said, because I love this song.
Wow.
I
never heard that.
He sure did. He spun it. He did it he did what he did 2 weeks in a row. Kept us in the ball game when it jumped into the top 10. And he called me back, and he goes, now you got the momentum. And we went on up.
Yes.
Several other places. Yeah. And and I'm sitting there looking at that song. It was on the charts for 49 weeks.
Wow.
49 weeks. That ain't far from a year.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Well, that was a huge blessing for me, and I think you had been kind of off the radio for a little bit, so it brought you back.
Big old blessing.
So it was a blessing for both of us.
Huge.
Yeah.
We learned so much, though. I mean, I can't speak for you, but I think I could almost speak for you. We learned so much about each other, about the business, I learned about masters versus, what do they call that? What we wound up,
Limited pressing.
Limited press,
Yeah.
all that. I learned all that stuff, which I knew nothing. And I mean, we just learned a ton in that process of going through all that. And, man, we made a great record.
We made a great record, and I learned a lot about how to deal with musicians on the session, because that was being my first record and being with a bunch of guys who weren't studio players. Right. I had to tread lightly because they're on the edge of their seat and they're nervous anyway, and so you got to be forgiving. You got to be patient.
That's right.
And it taught me a lot of patience that I carried forward, in my career.
And I learned that it costs a whole lot more to make a record with road players than it does with studio musicians.
Well,
No, it just takes a little more time.
takes a little more time.
And patience, like you said, and man, but those guys, they showed up and showed out. They did a fine job. If you take that record and compare it to a lot of other records that they came out and said, "Hey, we're doing this with my road band." If you compare it, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
It sounds like we took the A players in and made the
Yeah.
record, but
It does.
we just stayed with it till we got it right.
You had some great players, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Do y'all know what artist made a kind of a cameo appearance in that music video for Sounds Like Life? Do you know who?
I don't.
You don't know who?
No,
I do.
I forgot.
Jamie Johnson. We I
He
asked him
sure
if he
did.
would be in the video, and we rode our Harleys down there because he
Yes.
did that. It was in Columbia where you did the video,
Right.
Columbia, Tennessee, and we rode the Harleys down there that morning. And I wasn't in the video, but he sat up at the bar. He was just sitting there.
I think he's sitting right beside Kimberly.
Yeah,
I think they were sitting side by side. And
the quarterback.
Carrie
Carrie
Collins
Collins.
was the bartender.
I had been riding.
That's
I had been
hilarious.
riding with Carrie, and you called and said,
I
think
knew
we-
you were responsible for that. I remember that.
Yeah, and you said we were in a writing appointment. You called and you said, "I think the label wants to do a video on Sounds Like Life." And I went, "Yeah." And I told you I was riding with Carrie, and you said, "Well, ask him if he'll be in the video." And I asked him. He said, "Yeah, I'd love that." And the funny part about that was he had a real alcohol problem, and he had been sober just for
That's
a
right.
few years. So
Yep.
for him to be the bartender in the video was, I mean, he had a real problem. With
Yeah,
it.
you told me about it, and I did not know that, and I was like, because it was like, is that a conflict of interest, you know? And you said something to him. I think you asked him because I was concerned, and he
Yeah.
said, "No, I'll be fine. It'll be just fine."
He was a
And,
good guy.
And so, him, Jamie Johnson, hang on a second, Kendall Johnson, who built my motorcycle.
Oh yeah,
That I rode
That's
in the
where he rode
video.
in the video, yeah.
Kendall was there, and him and his wife were in the video. You can see them. They get a pretty good couple little glimpses of them in there. And then the dude that played the main role, the guy that was
Yeah, he was
going
an
through
actor,
all the
yeah.
stuff, so he winds up being one of the main characters on the Walking Dead, the zombie.
Wow.
He wound up being big time on that thing.
Yeah.
And so cool stuff, man.
Yeah.
Stuff. Now whole bunch of people will go back and watch that video. I got to see this.
That would be great. Go do that. You can find that on YouTube or any of those locations.
That'd be
So,
perfect.
I think we have a guest.
That's those ghosts.
That's those ghosts.
It's the ghosts of RCA
I think it's
Studios.
fine.
Look at this. Look who just.
Oh,
We got to find a spot on the couch for this character.
Yes, we do.
What's
how about
happening?
that? I told him to come.
No couch. I came uninvited. I thought T wanted to arm wrestle.
Well, there's always time for arm wrestling.
Come on over here and let me see how many inches you've grown.
I'm good. I ain't seen you in about
Sit on Papa's knee.
since Santa Claus didn't have no hair under
Let's
his
see
arm.
what we can
I
hide.
saw you.
come on through
What
there.
you up to, Hoss?
Come on over here, brother.
Y'all just BSing?
Yeah.
We're just
That's all
BSing.
there is to
We
it,
just got
man.
through talking about Sounds Like Life.
Think your name's
Mentioned your
popped up.
name.
Like life.
Your name's popped up
How
a
you
couple
doing, my
times.
friend?
I ain't worth even getting dust up.
Travis McLeese.
How you do, sir? Phil, good to see you.
Phil, I'm gonna put this in your pocket right here.
What is that?
That's
Scoot on over here, buddy. How you doing?
We was in New York together.
We had fun, didn't we?
I was
We
a
have-
nervous wreck. I was carrying my gun, and people was telling me, "Man, they'll lock you up here." And then someone mentioned him, and I thought I went right to the bus, took that son of a gun
I
out, and
told
put
him.
it,
I said,
put it
Moose,
in my bunk.
Yeah.
I
was
said
out
Moose
there.
went to jail for this up here.
Well, at least you weren't arrested and the only white guy in the cell. And
Yeah.
Your name is James Brown.
Yes.
They said,
Yeah.
Brown, James Brown.
Oh,
He said,
He
he said one guy said, "Yeah, you James Brown."
Yeah.
Yeah, you James Brown.
Oh, that
Oh,
cracks me
mercy.
up. Talk about the definition of freaking irony. This Moose in a cell with 15 other black men, and he's named James Brown.
Yeah.
Mercy.
Oh, get
You
your
can't
groove
make
on.
that up.
No.
No,
can't
you
make that
cannot.
up.
No. Yeah, we were talking about that song and making the album. And
Yeah.
Your name got dropped a couple
he's
times.
a writer on
Yeah.
it, you know.
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you what I told them that day. So I had already pitched that idea to Win Varble 2 or 3 times, and you know how Win is. Win is a cool cat when you're sitting down to write a song and you're getting ready to write, and so I already had my stuff out, so I was throwing a few ideas out, and Win will just, like, if he hears a couple ideas that don't hit him, he'll just act like he didn't hear them, you know. And he had done that with Sounds Like Life a few times. So this time I said, okay, here's the deal, fellas. I said, if we don't write this today, then I'm gonna write it by myself, and I'm gonna have a hit with it, and I'm gonna laugh at y'all. I'm gonna rub it in. And Phillbilly had never heard it before.
I can back the story up just a hair. I was writing with somebody, probably at Anchor Down. And Wynn called me, and I walked out. And, what are you doing? Well, I'm writing. He said, well, I'm over here with Darryl at his house, and we got this idea called Sounds Like Life to me, and we need a bopping little hooky little melody. So I went back into my room. I'm not sure who I was with, but I just, man, I've got to go. I've just got something going on. And I went to your house because it was in the afternoon when we got started.
Yeah. Well,
I
you did
felt
have something
sick.
going on.
I had something to go to. I was sick.
It didn't
Of
take
riding with
long.
you, whoever you were at the time, and I went over there, and yeah,
It didn't take us long.
yeah.
But when I threw that idea out to him, and he goes, you ain't never played this for me before. You never told me about this before. And I said, yes, I have 3 or 4 times. And I said, and you know, you just did your thing where you just act like you didn't hear it. He said, I didn't know it. I had a little something going, and I played it for him. He goes, that's a damn hit. and he starts calling Phillbilly. I was like, okay, we can't do it by ourselves, but let's get Phillbilly over here.
I'll
Buddy,
tell you
we wrote it just like that.
That's a well-crafted song.
Well,
Oh,
I think
thank you, man.
I
That
think
thing
I
was
dotted
tiny
the
as
I
it
and moon and crossed the T and mom is my part. Hmm.
No, you did
But we
not.
did the demo.
No, you
Did we
you were
all-
all in it.
Yeah.
Well, I told the story about we cut that on Craig, and you
Yeah.
were producing,
Yeah.
and we cut it on Craig Morgan, and it didn't work
Sure
out.
is.
So I remember
Well,
that. It was like 3
yeah.
years later when you asked me to produce.
And
I almost didn't tell this story, but I've got to. And then y'all can, if it comes off bad, y'all can take it out. But I was playing the show with Craig, and we'd already played, and so I went back out because at that time I was a huge fan of Craig's, you know, his military service, all this other stuff, and I thought, man, and I loved his singing. I thought there were certain songs that he had a hint of John Conley in his voice, and I, of course, don't get much better than that. So anyway, I went out to watch the end of his show, and I'm telling it backwards. It was during my show. I played Sounds Like Life right before. It was like down in the last 3 songs. When I come off the stage, there stands Craig's daddy, right at the bottom of the steps. He goes, hey. He shook my hand and said, I'm Craig Morgan's father. And I said, well, it's good to meet you, man. That is so cool. He goes, I loved your show. And he goes, hey, didn't Craig record that song, Sounds Like Life? And I said, he sure did. And he goes, did you have that out? I said, yep. It was a big old hit. And he goes, I told him that.
Oh man.
So
Well, he called me one night, and he said, man, you never play me nothing good. I said, what are you talking about? You have anything I have? Man, Darryl Worley just played me a song, and I'm cutting it. And you played in the work tape or something.
I played a song on my guitar on the bus. I sure did. I forgot about
Wow.
that.
He
I
called
I
me.
had totally forgot that.
He called me and said, man, you never play. I said, you have my iTunes all the time. Go in and listen to songs.
He said he was cutting it. He told me
Yeah.
that day. I
Yeah.
cannot believe I totally forgot that.
Yeah, he called
He
me
sure
and said
did.
he's doing that.
Yeah, I
good.
played it for him. I said, we just wrote this. And he said, man, that's good. And they cut it. Yeah. I heard his version of it.
I never
Yeah,
got
they
to
put
hear
it on a record. It
It
was
was
out.
like
Tell
it was
me
like
that. I didn't know that.
a hidden track. They called it a hidden track.
Yeah,
So
probably.
it was some kind of an
yeah.
extra thing. Like if you bought the record, then you could go and download that.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
I'm sure glad they were not. Well, I'm not even gonna get into that. I was over there at Stradivarius, and it was such a weird thing that was going on there. like we had the only hits they had ever had, and they wanted to get rid of me. So they were obviously sideways with the money, man. And I'm gonna write a book. We'll do all that in the book.
Of course, then you come in with Keep the Change one day idea.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And
It was on. Was it on that same? No, it was on the next record.
it was on the next record that I think then that's about the time the label kind of fell apart.
It was.
Yeah.
Because it was Tequila on Ice on Sounds Like Life.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
that
what
was
I
the
thought.
first single.
Yes.
And boy, to me, I love that song. I
So
loved
do
your
I.
version, all that, but it just didn't sound like, because you had some downtime, and I felt like we needed a Darryl Worley radio thing, and it just didn't sound like Darryl Worley to me. I loved it, and
I think it was the wrong song at that time. I think Sounds Like Life would have been perfect for that.
yeah,
time.
I kind of always felt that too. It's a great song. You guys wrote a great song.
Thank you, man.
So, Darryl, I need you to give a formal introduction to the viewers of
Well,
our
yeah.
guest here.
I was just thinking about that because
Y'all just got to talking, and which is exactly what you said would happen. Is that, he said, if Phillbilly gets here, we're going to have a hard cut time, because
That's
if
right.
not, we'll be here till dinner. I said, well, okay, we'll get you covered.
so many people out there in the real world have heard me talk, because we just say Phillbilly. I mean, we don't think about it. We just say Phillbilly did this or that. And this is Phil O'Donnell, a very, very close friend of mine. Also part of kind of our little within the industry circle, that we talked about earlier with Randy, and we talked about Randy Hardison and all that
Oh
stuff.
gosh, so fun.
And so Phil and I were just in Albany, New York together on a big show. He was playing with Craig Morgan. He produces Craig's records and is working on some stuff with me at this time. And dude, I'm glad you could pop in.
I sure am
Now
thankful
everybody
for
gets
the
to see Phillbilly in person.
for the invite.
Going back to Randy Hardison and the common thread, he's the one who introduced me to Phillbilly. Craig had one album out, Almost Home, that I did not play on, but I
Right.
came in on the next
Yep.
album because he recommended me to Phillbilly.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
Yep.
So yeah, that's going back a long way.
And
That's
I-
almost 20 years ago.
I think it's funny how y'all remember a lot more stuff than I do.
Were you at
kind of
Island
view.
Bound the day we were cutting demos? Tiny, Swine, Scrod, I think, was there. Jeff
King.
I'm pretty sure John Willis was there. Mikey Johnson. And I brought in, Megan was with me that day, and she was probably 6 to 7 to 8 at the time. She's now in her 30s with kids. But we came in, and Swine said, "That's good shit." And that's when Tiny looked at him, he said, "Swine, don't say shit in front of the KIDS." That was the first time I heard that was at Island Bound Studio, and I think you may have been there.
I still
think
say
I
that to this
remember
day.
that.
That's
Yeah.
where that came from.
Yep, that came from Tiny that morning.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's
That's
funny.
pretty
I always say, don't say shit in front of the kids.
KIDS.
Oh, I'm sorry, but that's the kind of crap that we.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like that 24/7.
Non-stop, yeah,
Play one of
non-stop.
mine. Play one of mine.
Oh boy.
Give 'em
Very
that.
first time I ever did 10-Pound South thing, I had heard so much about it, and it's this songwriter things going on all over town, and I was up at this thing, and I was getting ready to play a song or two with this 3 or 4 writers, and I'm a nervous wreck, and I start to play a song, and he introduces me, and I hear this voice way in the back. Play one of mine! And Tiny had snuck in. You know what I did? I made him get up and play.
Oh
gosh.
man, I remember one time. God, we were talking about Randy Hardison the whole show, but
Yeah.
when the Time Jumpers first started,
Mm.
they were playing and it was the first evolution of that. It was Hoot Hester was playing fiddle. It was his thing, and it was down at what's the little place?
Not the exit.
Union Station, or ain't it, what's it called?
Not the exit in.
No, not Exit Inn.
No,
You know the little place.
Station Inn?
Station Inn.
Station Inn. That's what I was
There's
trying
the
to say.
Station
That's
Inn.
Station Inn.
Well, there was a
Yeah.
brief period where
you.
WSM was broadcasting the Time Jumpers live.
That's right.
And Tiny and I were working earlier that
He
day
said
on
a
a
brief
session.
period.
That's before they got fired.
Tiny said, "Hey, let's go down and see the Time Jumpers tonight." I said, "Okay." So I was running a few minutes late, and he called me right at 9 o'clock. And the Time Jumper, I could hear the music in the background. He said, "Moose, are you on your way?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll be there in about 10 minutes." And he said, "You got your radio on WSM?" And I said, "No." He said, "Put it over there." So I put it over on WSM, and I heard Randy yell, "Moose, woo!" on the radio.
I mean, who else would do that? Nobody else in the world. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? He said, we was laughing before we started all this today, that he would be working at the board with, he'd lead the session or whatever, and be at the board with the engineer, and he'd push the talk back button down to talk to you in the vocal booth or whatever, and he'd go, "Man, you're singing really good. Just keep doing what you're doing." And then he'd hold the button down. He'd lean over to the engineer and go, "I told him he was singing really good." Just stupid stuff. I mean,
I got one more, and then I'll lay off for Randy. But we were at the station and watching the Time Jumpers on another night, and it was me and Win Varble and Win's daddy and one of his dad's friends. So it was the four of us, and we were sitting in the very back table at the station inn, and we'd all had a couple beers, So there was 8 or 10 beer bottles on the table, and these two bicycle cops walked in, and we were in the table right by the door when you come in, and Randy saw those cops, and he just took all the beer bottles and pushed them over in front of Win. And when they got right beside our table, Randy said, "Win, are you sure you're okay to drive?"
I'm telling you, he was good people.
He had lines.
That's right.
Listen, we would go, all of us, and eat lunch together. You just reminded me of this. We'd all go and eat lunch together, and Win Varble, I come out of the bathroom one day. I had gone to the bathroom before we all got finished. But I came back and sat down, and right when everybody finished, was getting paid up and everything, Tiny takes off to the bathroom, and Win Varble goes, come on. I want to show you something. And so we took off. He said, "You need to get out. Let's get out of the restaurant before Tiny gets back." So we did. We got out, and we got where you could look back in there and see him. He said, "Come here. I want you to see what this son of a bitch is fixing to do."
Oh, no.
And so we were picking through the window, and Tiny comes back and gets everybody's tip money and puts it right by his plate.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
All that work. He said he does it every time.
Yeah. The one time we had a session, I mean, it happened, I guess this happened all the time. But every now and then we would all lose our book. So wouldn't it, Tiny would just go sit at Virginia's, right?
Oh, yeah.
He'd just go sit there and wait till his phone rang, because all the studios within 3 or 4 minutes, and he had the same story every time. He'd walk in 5-10 minutes late, said, "Dang woman opened the liquor store, was late again this morning." It was his line.
I called him one morning because he wasn't at the session, and I said, "Where you at?" And he said, "On my way. Who is this?"
Mm-hmm.
Where
am I supposed to be?
Yeah.
But it was usually just either the County Q, Berry Hill, or Studio 19, or one of those, around there.
That's
so
right.
it was pretty you could get to Berry Hill in 5 minutes then.
Yeah, those days are gone.
If I was somebody that was just on the outside watching this, listening in on this would be interesting. It would be.
Neat.
It would be very interesting to me. I'm just talking about the being here in Nashville, the music industry part of this. Oh, very cool, man. I appreciate you guys slowing down for a minute and sitting in on this with me. This will be really good because of where we are with this Chet's. I saw his mirror in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'd have to get one a little taller. It's got like 4 panels where you fold it open, and it's a dressing mirror, where you
That
see
was the first time I saw my bald spot. I was moving the mirrors like, holy crap.
That's funny.
Now, Phil, before we wrap this thing up, everybody else got to tell their favorite Darryl Worley story. And so we don't want to leave you out. If you want to take a moment and roast them a little bit, we'd be glad to give you some airtime to do that.
Wow.
Daryl's holding his breath over there. He looks nervous.
No, most of that stuff they can't tell.
So you're,
I don't worry too
you
much
feel
about it.
protected on that.
The good stuff ain't coming out.
Statute of limitations too.
Actually, some of my favorite ones, he was there, but it might not have been him. But I think we'll just leave them in the talk about at the deer camp files.
There you go.
Leave it in the vault.
Leave it in the vault.
And it's not nothing bad. It's just funny.
Yeah.
You know.
I got the story I tell on you to this day. I was mixing in the back room at Q, Studio C, and you walk in. I was dipping Copenhagen at the time, so I had water bottle, spit bottle. I said, "Phillbilly, how you doing?" I reached for my water bottle. I saw him grin. I'm like, "That's kind of weird." It was the wrong bottle.
Oh, man.
He didn't say a word. He knew
let
what
him
was
do
good.
it.
Let him do it.
He's gonna learn.
Now that's a friend.
That's a real friend.
That's
He's
a
gonna
buddy.
get you off that stuff.
Yeah, but we've all, if you live long enough,
Yeah.
you've
done
tried to drink a cigarette butt or
Oh,
spit
yeah.
out of a beer bottle.
Absolutely.
We've all, you know.
We've had some good times, man.
Yeah.
Looking back at Nashville, it's still doing great, but those were special times.
Man.
We had no idea what we was in,
Oh,
did
We
we?
my
really
gosh.
didn't,
We
man.
didn't. No.
I talk about this particular thing right here with a lot of different people, but talking about it with you guys is really special. So when I landed here, it was because of my deal with EMI, and they literally, it's in my contract. If you go back and look at it, it says you have to relocate to Nashville. They made me move to town because I wouldn't do it. I thought I can go to muscle shows or do this or that. When I landed here, I believe that it was the most electric time
Yeah, it was.
right here on Music Row. I mean, man, I don't even have the words. It was just, you could feel it in the air.
Yeah. Well, people were still selling physical product, and so there was a lot of money being made. People weren't uptight about demoing songs.
Right.
Songwriters and musicians stayed really busy doing
Yes.
sessions when they weren't
That's
playing on
right.
records. We'd fill in every 3-hour block doing a demo session for somebody.
And one of the coolest things, man, is no matter what genre of music you wanted, there was a circle of people that did that here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then a lot of those kind of reached out and went everywhere else.
I just thought of one story that's just an amazing story. It's how small of a world it is. But my first trip here was in '83, and then I kept coming and coming. But I moved in '93. But I bought as you remember, a pretty good craft where I had the truck with the hoses,
Yep.
wet saws and grinders and jackhammers and all this stuff, and a mortar mixer on the back of it, and would work in the morning a little bit, and then go ride or go
Oh, hell,
demo or something.
Craig Morgan, I work with you too.
Yeah, Craig did. Craig actually, him and Joey ran a wheelbarrow for me on running mortar to me on a job. But this one day, I was on my way home, and I pulled into the Shell at Kingston Springs, and you just so many times you got that mortar mixer on the back. I had a 1993 Ford F-350 long truck. So I had to pull around and get diesel, and I was pulling around, and I forgot it was back there, and I backed up and upset my mixer. Well, a couple old boys came across the parking lot, and I didn't know it at the time. It was the first time I ever laid my eyes on Swa. And they were on their way to Savannah to play a gig with him. And Dana had told me, they said, yeah, I had a couple buddies of mine help some guy with a mortar mixer at King. I said, that was me. He said, well, I played that gig with them.
Oh
That
my
is
God.
crazy.
And I'm
How
just
cool
thinking,
is that?
like,
Yeah,
that was
that's
Dana
awesome.
Heidemann, who kind of,
Wow.
was part of my getting back at music because he was playing for Jeff Carson at
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
That's right.
And he said, man, why don't you come try? I said, man, my amp and rack and everything had dirt daubers in it. It was in the barn, but anyway, I went and started playing again. But it was because of him. Like, he was kind of one of the glues with all this.
One of my best friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lost
and
him
mine
too.
Yep.
He died with a brain cancer.
Yep.
Oh man.
Boy.
But I can remember Swan and somebody else. I don't know who it was. But they come over and pick that mixture up. There you go, buddy. So then I'm talking to Dana like 2 or 3 days later, and he said, yeah, he said,
we played a gig with this new guy, Darryl Worley. He's going to get a deal, and a couple of my buddies in the band helped some guy. I thought of you. They helped him put his more. Well, it was me.
Wow.
That's hilarious.
That's
We was
crazy.
probably playing at the Moose Lodge in Savannah.
Probably was.
Man, that is funny. But I mean, all jokes aside, man, I'm telling you, you know, got out on the road and got real busy doing that, and I'd roll back down here for things that I had to do, and I just think, you know, years passing faster than you can believe, right? But I'd get down here and I'd think, man, things are changing. And it has, I mean, honestly, that's one, and I told you this when I did it, but that's one of the reasons I went back home. I didn't feel a real need to be around anymore. I'm not saying that there's not still a lot of unbelievable, you know, stuff going on here. And
There's stuff going on, but it's just not the same.
It just ain't the same.
It's like three years ago, I moved to Muscle Shoals. I was here almost 30 years.
Sounds like that might be a good place for us to tie a ribbon on this thing and wrap it up. Or
Oh, it's fine with me, man. I just can't thank these guys enough for taking the time out of their busy schedules to come in and
Thanks for
chat
the
with
invite.
us.
Thanks
And
for the invite.
got a little vocalizing done here today, but this will be a great episode, man. People will love, you know, our interaction and being able to communicate about the Nashville stuff that they don't get to share in very often. And but I promise you, it's a good, like you said, it's a good place probably to stop, because we got down to the end and it kind of sunk in how much it really truly has changed. I mean, it's a. I don't think that there will ever be another time like that. Here, I mean, for the music industry.
There's just not enough money in it to you know, everybody was carefree, and now everybody's so tight. They're making music out of fear almost, you know.
There's
And-
way
Well,
more
you
liability
said a
nowadays.
lot of it.
Yeah.
You said a lot of it when you said, you know, everybody used to be selling product. Well, I can tell you right now that the first year that the internet really kicked in and the streaming started to, not, you know, I'm saying the first year that it was significant. Trust me when I tell you, we felt it. I mean, we hired a company. It's the same company that does a lot of these, like, 1 million sales plaques and that kind of stuff. Same company. We asked them, what would it cost for you to just do an independent study on me and tell me how much money I've lost this year because of this? And it was like 800 and something grand.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, so
Well,
that
you know,
hurts.
I remember when 5 O'Clock Somewhere came out. Again, I don't like to talk about it, but
Just numbers.
but,
Just numbers.
but
It's all
Drive you
good.
crazy.
that was on Alan Jackson's Greatest Hits, and that first week it sold like 330,000 copies.
Yes.
And fast forward years later, I played on a Willie Nelson record that was a #1 country record, and it sold like 13,000 records.
Yep.
And you know, as we all know, the streaming just doesn't pay
Ooh.
that much, and so you know, everybody's had to really tighten up, and they can't be free to explore.
That's right.
They gotta keep it really concise and tight. And,
Yes, change.
yeah.
you can feel that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel it in the music. You know.
Yes.
The demos, we used to, you know, write 15 songs a month and
Oh,
demo
yeah.
10 of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now I write 30 or 40 songs in 6 months, and I demo 5 of them. But I do
Right.
guitar vocals at my house. We got a little
Sure.
rig, and that's all it is.
You're
It's
just
like
not gonna
there's
make your
just
money
not,
back.
you know.
It's a whole different industry.
Yeah.
Man, think about this. I signed my first writing deal, I think, in '99. And at that time, there were between 2,000 and maybe 2,300 songwriters on staff with publishing deals, getting paid in advance to write so many songs a year. And now it's under 200. There's like 150 to 200 writers, you know, getting advances, and it's just shrunk that much. And you've seen through the years,
I didn't realize that.
we've seen the publishing companies fold into each other and or go out of business. And
Yeah. I wonder if the day will come when someone calls Nashville and they go, Nashville, just a minute, publishing, just a minute, label. You know, is it coming to that?
Well,
You
it
know?
already is, I think.
I think it
Pretty
kinda
close
already
down to a
is,
few.
yeah.
I think it
you know.
already is. I think, and I personally think that is sort of the LA model.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
The
That's-
whole writing in camp.
everybody's like in one
know,
house. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an LA thing.
You
They
got
say,
6
well,
or 8 writers
if
on
we
a
do
song.
it all in one house,
Yeah.
we get all the money.
Right.
And so, very, very difficult to be an independent, like a on the outside of all that writer, and get a big cut on some artist that is part of one of those houses, because they're going to try to keep all the, I mean, that's just
Think about the young kids coming up like we were. They don't really hardly have a chance like we did.
Not like
They
that.
don't. We got to wear the jacket.
Well,
We got, yeah.
That's
did.
exactly. Well, I
You know.
believe. I mean, I
Yeah,
believe that.
I'm thankful.
Me
Me
too.
I
too.
can't stick my bottom lip out. I'm just like, I'm blessed.
We
I'm
were
just
we were on the
thankful.
tail end of an incredible era in
Yeah,
Nashville.
the demo scene was the middle class. I mean,
Yeah.
it kept everybody eating.
Absolutely.
You know, it
I
was
sung a
great.
million of those.
Exactly.
I'm like, yes, bring it on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That paid a lot of my gas money back and
And what
forth.
was odd was we would go in and cut them in the morning, and then we'd go to the back room and we'd sing vocals after lunch from 2 to 2:30, 2 to 3. 3:30 we had Russell Terrell or someone coming in and do backgrounds, and then y'all were mixing them
And
that
about
night.
Yeah, that
at 6
And it
o'clock
was like
we started mixing.
just a
County
factor.
Q, yeah.
We just ran
Yeah.
through them. Now
It was a factor.
someone, hey, I'm gonna demo this song. It's like you check on them 6 months. How's that song coming, man? Well, we
Oh,
got
that's
a vocal
true.
on it. We're waiting on
Yeah.
someone to get a background. And
Well, that's very true. This is just like this thing with me and Chris this morning.
Yeah.
But we knocked those out today. It used to be so much going on that when I was still writing Muscle Shoals, I was getting all kinds of demo singing work up here, and I could line up enough stuff to do. I'd have to go from one place to another all day long, and I'd make $50 a pop everywhere I went. And then I remember by the time I got here and they made me move here, it was $75 a song. Yeah. And then you think you got even a little bit more if you put the backgrounds on there too.
And I made good singers, man.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
tell me about it,
Yeah.
because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had to come up with my own little system of like arrows that went up like that and all
there's the
this other
downbeats.
stuff.
It goes here.
And I had my own little deal. And
If you're a player and engineer, there wasn't a better system to learn, man, because you got to come up with stuff.
yes,
You got to be there.
that's right.
5 songs in 3 hours, all the time, at least.
And
And,
if you were Robert, what's his name? He would get
Robert Ellis Oral, yeah.
he would get between 8 and 12.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he'd put you in the seat
Yep.
with a string of charts and just play you
Yeah.
just a little. It's like this, you
All
know.
solos on the fly. We're not overdubbing anything. We're cutting the track and moving on. You know, he'd get 10, 12 songs in 3 hours.
There's a funny story about me and Randy getting into it because because I got to paying real close attention, and of course they got all this cartage and stuff coming in, and then the first downbeat would be like at what time did the session start? 10?
10 o'clock,
10 to
yeah.
2. First downbeat would be like 10:30, 10:45. And so I said something to him about it. Boy, that was a mistake. Oh, did he ever get sore? Man, I said, well, I can't. I said, I'm trying really hard to get 4 or 5 songs, and we're not doing it, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah. If you
I
drop
could've-
30 minutes, you dropped a song pretty much.
I could have said anything I want to. It pissed him off.
Yeah.
But I remember one time you and him got into it. Y'all went outside.
Oh yeah, he was a little bitty guy, but he was ready to whip me.
He said, we'll just go outside.
I was trying to apologize to him, and I opened up the drum room door and I said, Tiny, can I see you outside for a second? You dang right now, let's go. Oh, he's ready. He was ready to go. And I got outside and I said, man, I just wanted to apologize to you. You and Swine are my closest friends. I'm feeling a lot of pressure, and I gotta, we're behind on the songs, and he ended up apologizing. He decided that when we went back in, I should hold my stomach and he'd hold his jaw. And Swine deemed it the Sumner County incident.
Sumner County
Hendersonville.
Oh, boy. If we ain't done anything else today, we've done some good laughing, man. Oh, boy.
Yes, sir.
Well, we thank you guys again for spending some time with us. It's been I've heard about all of you from different stories with Darryl, so to get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into that, and just that's what it's all about. The show's called Sounds Like Life, and you guys are a big part of his life, and I know that was part of the reason we wanted to do this today. And we just thank you guys, and we thank everybody who's watching. We thank you guys because we're having some fun with this, I think.
Absolutely.
He's trying to shut us down. I'm
Well,
ready. I can't go home. She's still awake.
Listen. Just ignore him.
Ain't many people that's learned much from me, I'm afraid to say.
Sounds like life to me.
Sounds like strife.
Sounds like what?
This is fun, man.
Sounds Like Life with Darryl Worley is a Bluesfire Media production hosted by Darryl Worley and Travis McLeese, produced and edited by Mike Murphy and Sam Hudson, lighting by Micah Powell, set design by Sam Hudson, theme song Sounds Like Life to Me by Darryl Worley, executive producers Jeff Lemanowski and Julianne Drennan.